I'm here with Henry of God Dethroned to talk about their upcoming new record, The Judas Paradox, out September 6th on RPM. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time. How are things going with you? Getting ready for this release date?
Yeah, we are. We're shooting videos for the singles at the moment. We just had the release of Red Kingdom, the first one. And in a few weeks, the single for the Judas Paradox will be released on August 9th. We just finished filming the video, and now it's being edited. And we're getting ready for the set list of the tour that follows in September. So we have a festival coming up in Portugal. We just played a festival in Germany. So yeah, it's quite busy.
And actually, since you're mentioning that you're shooting the video for the Judas Paradox, when I was listening to this record, obviously I didn't know that you were shooting the video for the Judas Paradox, but when I was listening to this record, I was like, how is that song not the first single?
Yeah, good question. We didn't decide that. It was a record company who said, okay, we would like to have these songs as the singles, and they wanted Red Kingdom as the first one. And so if that's what they want, then they can have it like that, you know. So the Judas Paradox is single number two, but I think it's fine.
To me is it's an outstanding song. And it's so good that it needed to be the first single. You want to come, and I'm not saying Red Kingdom is not a good song, but I'm just saying the Judas Bear. It's the opening track. It's the title of the record. It's a very different song from the rest of the album. You're narrating it in the first person. There's just so many cool things about that track that I'm like, this is the single. This is it.
I know, I know. I guess if I had a say in that, then it would happen probably. But the record company chose it as to be the second single. They thought it would be best to have it as a second single. So that's what's going to happen, and we'll see. Red Kingdom did very well. Hopefully, the Judas Paradox will do even better.
I'm sure it will. And that begs the question, where the idea, not only for that song, but to go with the title of the record, the Judas Paradox, where did this idea of the Judas Paradox come from?
Um, yeah, that's a funny story, actually. I was reading something about the Fermi paradox. I don't know if you know that.
No.
It was a scientist who, when he had lunch break, he was joking with his fellow scientists about. He said, "I'm pretty sure that aliens have discovered us, but why are we still not in contact with them?" So then they came up with all kinds of stuff why they would not contact us, like they've seen us, but they think like, oh no, no, you're not ready, all kinds of things like that. So that was the idea, to do something about Judas. I thought, what if I write a song about the fact that Judas was not the betrayer of Jesus Christ? So I started doing research like I always do. And to my astonishment, I found out that half the planet is having ideas about this very thing. So even in the Bible, there's contradicting stories about the role of Judas in the whole process of betraying Jesus. So I decided to write the song from the standpoint of Judas, telling him that he was proud of being one of the 12 disciples, seeing Jesus as his brother, and that he was not a betrayer, etc., etc. And then it turns out, it also says in the Bible that Jesus could look into the future, had the plan to be murdered, to be able to return as king of the world. And Judas was the chosen one to fulfill the task. And so in the song, when the clean singing comes, this is done by Dave, the guitar player. He sings or says to Judas, please forgive me for what I did, but you were the chosen one to make this plan actually happen. And that's what the Judas Paradox is about.
Funny enough, I'm one of those people that kind of tend to believe in that theory because if you want to put a plan in motion, who you going to trust your plan with? Your best friend or your worst enemy? I think you're going to trust your best friend.
Yeah, So that was the idea behind the song. That in the end, Judas was just a scapegoat, and he was tricked into doing this, but not because he wanted to. So
Wow.
it's a different view on that topic.
And it's a view that I've pondered about it myself. It's an interesting thought process, and I really like the way you guys put that song together. And what a way to kick off the record. When it comes to the lyrics on an album like this, how much you mentioned doing your research, how much work goes into that research for the lyrics for an album like the Judas Paradox?
I guess I guess for like probably 50% of the songs I do research because it has like historical themes or or it has parts that refer to ancient mythology, Egyptian mythology, you know, about the Eye of Horus, like what's the song called?
Yeah, I have Providence.
The Eye of yeah, Provenance. So you know, songs like that, I do research. The Judas Paradox, I do research. Even for a song like Red Kingdom, I do a little bit of research. Although the song didn't need a lot of research, I'd like to have my facts straight as much as possible. Also for Kashmir Princess, it was the first song or the first lyrics that I wrote for the album, and I wanted to write something about a conspiracy theory. And then I found out fairly quickly that all those people are completely crazy. And the Kashmir Princess, actually, it was an airplane that was shot down in Asia, full of people from the government and stuff like that, and it was never found back. Blah blah blah. So I decided to turn it into a story which is half airplane, half about a woman. And it's the lyrics are completely crazy. You should read them and listen to them to get your own idea, to get your own picture in your head, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I left it completely open. It goes nowhere. And it was actually the first lyrics that I wrote. And then I decided, okay, no more conspiracy theories because it's too out of whack to fill a whole album with lyrics like that.
Yeah, especially coming off of the Illuminati. I mean, like, talk about conspiracy theories with that one. After so many years, so many records, is it getting easier or harder for you?
It's not getting easier. And that's simply because I don't want to repeat myself. That goes for the music and for the lyrics. Um, you know, it's important that people can hear it's God Dethroned. But I don't want them to think like, oh, but I heard this before, or this looks like that and that song. You know, I want it to be new and fresh and something we haven't done before. So when you're working on album number 13, it gets quite difficult, I can tell you.
I can imagine because there's a lot of other songs. There's a lot of records on that discography. I'm sure even without noticing, you might be working on a new riff and then you realize, oh, did I do this one already? Do I have something similar?
Yeah, well, I try to avoid it, and I know my songs pretty well, so I'm pretty sure I never do something I've done before. But yeah, that's a challenge, you know, to do something completely new and then write 10 songs for a new album. Yeah, that's quite a challenge.
When you look at the body of work on this record, do you see a musical thread that connects these songs, or at least that creates some sort of a path that allows the record to have an overall arch to it?
Not really. We have no plan when we start writing. We just compose some melodies and some riffs, and then we see where it takes us. We want as much diversity as possible. So on this album, for example, we have like a couple of more brutal songs. We have a couple of more mid-tempo songs with more melodies and great guitar solos. And then we have a couple of songs that are really atmospheric and epic, like the Judas Paradox and Kashmir Princess. So it's like we, you know, and I still think like in the old days where you start a record from A to Z, so to speak, you know, like you start at the beginning of the album and you listen each track after the other, meaning that I want people to get into a certain atmosphere and then take them into a different atmosphere, and then take them to another atmosphere, and then until the circle is round, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not writing an album thinking like, okay, some people will only listen to this song on a certain Spotify playlist. I try to make a coherent album with a beginning and an end, and hoping that people will take the effort to listen through the whole album from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm one of those listeners. I definitely go from beginning to end, and that's why I wanted to pick your brain about that, because I did find that the album had some songs that were super melodic, very textured. Then it had some that were a little bit more dense, a little bit more thicker, heavier. Some that like it was really hard for me to find a pattern, so to speak, throughout the entire album.
I guess that's a problem, if you want to call it like that, we have on every album. We're not both thrower who does like a certain vibe on an album from beginning to end, or like Motorhead, or we always do stuff that's completely different, not only different to the albums before, but also on the album itself.
Mhm.
Maybe for some people it's too complicated. For other people, it's beautiful that we do it like that, and it's just how we work. And I think we will always work like that.
And speaking of that more melodic side on the of the album, this record, guitar wise, it's very rich. You guys created really interesting melodies, really interesting sounds. Even in songs that are super dense and thick and heavy, you still find a way of inserting some sort of melody here and there to kind of cut through that heaviness. And overall, when I got to the end of the record, I was like, man, this is like a guitar sounding album for the ages. It just has so much to give. It's not one dimensional. It doesn't have just one direction. It's just really like there's no other word. It's just a really rich guitar sounding album. Um, is that something that it comes naturally to you to write a record that the guitars have this much work, this much of a workload on its shoulders?
Um, yes, most of the times, yes. I guess it's because I'm inspired by people like David Gilmour, the Pink Floyd guitar player, and he also puts a lot of stuff in the songs. We do that too, and now this time Dave added even more. There's even stuff that we didn't use because he is like, okay, we have four rhythm guitars, we have melodies, we have the harmonies on the melodies, the guitar solos with one or two extra harmonies in it. And then he said, oh, we can put a clean part here as well, and then we ended up with some songs having like 60 tracks or something. It's like completely crazy. And so there's a lot to discover, so when you listen to the album for the first time, you will hear the basic lines probably, but the more often you listen, you will discover more and more details that are hidden somewhere in the music, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was interesting for me because I heard the album first in the car, and then I heard the album with proper headphones. The experiences were different because obviously in the car you don't get the nuances of all the layers and all the textures that the guitar sound had. But then when you listen to it on the headphones, it's almost like you're rediscovering the album all over again. And the impression that if you asked me about the record after I listened to it in the car, my impression then was completely different from my impression afterwards. So
Yeah.
it was a really, for me, it was such a weird vibe because it's like, is this even the same record? Because you really noticed how rich the sound is guitar wise once you actually listen to it properly with proper headphones and you're actually paying attention to the songs.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, it was quite a challenge to mix it. I mixed the album myself this time. For all those years, I've always tried to find people who can give me the sound that I always wanted, which was not easy. And I was so fed up with it that I decided to mix it myself this time. And I'm really happy with the result. The record company is really happy with the result. And finally, I managed to make God Dethroned sound like the way I always had in my mind.
It,
Meaning a lot of guitar, but also a lot of drums. Everything's
oh,
clear. You can hear all the details. It's heavy and it's bright at the same time. And it was quite a challenge, but it turned out great, I think.
The drums are, when they're heavy, they're super heavy. When they know when to take a little bit of a step back, they take that step back. Another element that I thought was really cool was the bass, because you could hear the bass. It has a nice impact, specifically in the atmosphere and in the overall darkness of the album, but it's not jarring. It's not like you're constantly hearing the bass knocking in your ears. So I really enjoy that because I like to hear the bass, but I don't like to just hear the bass, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. So it was a lot of balancing in the mix, like volumes between the instruments, and making sure that every part gets in the forefront when it's needed, a little bit more in the back when it's needed. Yeah, yeah, I think it turned out great, and yeah, it sounds well balanced and everything. So I'm quite happy. I'm very happy, actually.
And the other aspect is your vocals, because at first glance, when I heard the album, I felt like, okay, this is what I would expect from God Dethroned, is a very balanced vocal approach from beginning to end. But then the more that I heard the album and the more that I picked up on the specific nuances of the songs, and even in the lyrical content of the songs, I felt like you took some liberties, if you will, and created some vocal nuances here and there in order to not just have an album that it's very dynamic sound wise, but it also has some dynamics as far as the vocals are concerned. Was that your thought process?
Um, it was not planned because we never really plan. We start recording, we do adjustments, we try different things, we try to add things. I noticed this time that I really took my time to go for it, and sometimes it even took me like 5 hours to sing one song properly, the way that I wanted it to be, as perfect as could be. And I noticed that in the past sometimes, I was happy that I was finished with my vocals and that was it. And this time I had the approach like it should be as perfect as possible, no matter how long it takes. So I didn't record a lot of songs on a day, sometimes just even one song on a day, but then at least it was perfect. And so I had a lot of energy to do this. And I felt that it had to be as perfect as possible. We have a new record label. I can feel the enthusiasm from the label towards the band. We've been at Metal Blade for 25 years, so now we went to Reigning Phoenix Music, which is an awesome label. Metal Blade is an awesome label too, but if you're there for too long, no matter which label you are, you should move because you need new energy. So we got new energy, and this new energy was put into the record. And I think that's the main difference, and I think that's what you can hear actually.
And for you, being doing this for a very long time, when you look back at the discography of the band, is there a record that stands out as the one where you feel like set you to be on the path that you're still on, making music and pushing God the Throne forward?
I guess I have that feeling with every new record. I think it's normal. Most musicians always think their latest album is the best they ever did. That's how I feel about the Judas Paradox at the moment. But looking back, I think albums like The Grand Grimoire, Passchendaele, those two are probably my all-time favorites. Of course, Bloody Blasphemy, everybody loves Bloody Blasphemy. But for me, I think Grand Grimoire, Passchendaele are like my favorites because of the atmosphere. I guess this one could be added to those two. Um, but you can never tell until a few years later. When you look back on the album, you think, oh yeah, okay. So this is how I really feel about it. It's too early to say.
It needs some time to mature, if you will.
That's what I meant. Yes.
I want to go back to Kashmir Princess because you talked about that song quite a bit, and to me that is one of the standout tracks on this record. The guitar playing on that song is like very Pink Floydish in terms of different pieces, different momentums, so much energy, so much life in the guitars on that track. But even your vocal performance, I felt was so good on that song. It was that one because to me that is probably the biggest in terms of layers and textures. That's probably the biggest one on the record. Was that a difficult song to put together?
No, not at all. It was probably the easiest song to put together. And it's funny that you say that you feel that it has the most layers of all the songs. It doesn't.
It
Not at all.
doesn't.
No, no, no. It's probably the easiest song on the album.
Wow.
It's actually quite basic, but of course it has the keyboards in the back, which give it a certain vibe, you know, and it goes up and down. And at a certain point, there's the break where it starts with the keyboards, with just the drums and the bass guitar, which is quite rare for us. We never did something like that before. Also, the song stands out on the album. You're very right about that. It's actually the odd one out, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But the record label says, "Wow, we love it so much. We think you can maybe find even a new audience with this song." So like we did Red Kingdom as first single, Judas Paradox as the second one, then it will be the Hanged Man as the third single, and then we go on tour. And in the fall or winter of this year, we will do the final single, which will be the Kashmir Princess. It's all very strange. A record company asking us to do a single after the release, which is really strange. But they have so much faith in the song and in the strength of the song that we said, okay, if you want it, we will do it. And I'm really curious to find out if we will find a new audience with that song or because of that song. And I like the vibe in the song a lot. It's definitely one of my favorites. But it's also one of the easiest songs on the album. And it's so funny that you think it's the most layered one.
To me, it sounded like the most complex one when I was listening to the record, and to hear that from you, it's just like wow. It really goes to show you that the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It all comes down to the individual person and how they listen to a record or how they listen to a song.
Yeah, very true.
And you know, the songs that the label picked for the singles are all my favorite ones on the record. If I had to pick four tracks on this record, those four would have been it. I still say the Judas Paradox should have been the first single, but that's an argument that we already had. So, but those four to me are like the standout songs because I think those four songs really represent the album well. They give a good vibe of what the record is all about.
Yeah, I think one of my personal favorites of the more brutal songs is Hubris Anorexia. I think it's a beautiful song. It's very compact. It has like old school mixed with new school. Um, I like the guitar solos a lot in that song. Um, but you know, I guess when people listen to it and they will have a favorite now and maybe different favorites later, that's the exciting part of it all, I think.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to your mindset and where you are at the time. Like you said, a song that's your favorite now, maybe 2 years, 3 years down the road, you find another one that speaks a little bit more to you at that time. It's really hard to say. A record is like a living organism. It changes through time, you know.
Yeah, definitely true. Yeah.
At least that's my
But it's
take
nice
on it.
to hear. I'm sorry.
No, that at least that's my take on it, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And but it's nice to hear that you have at least the same feeling about the singles like the record company did, and we have a good feeling about them too. But if you're working for months on an album, your objectivity is completely gone. So you need input from other people to tell you which is good and which is the best, you know?
Yeah, because I'm sure for you guys, it becomes almost impossible to see the forest from the trees. Everything is just one big thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really cool to hear those songs because I pre-recorded my album review that I'm going to be doing for the record yesterday, and those were exactly the songs that I picked as my standout tracks on my album review. So to hear that those are the songs that are going to be coming out as singles, I guess we all have somewhat of the same kind of ears for what we feel it works. But I just want to say, Henry, thank you very much for taking the time today to talk about the record. Really enjoy listening to the album. I think that opening track really sets the table for the record. It's such a different, unique song for me listening to it, and I can really relate to the topic of the song. And having it in the first person, I thought was just you guys nailed it.
Thank you very much. And I can promise you that the video will be very special.
I'm really
We
excited. I'm really
Oh
excited to
man,
see what you guys do.
it's we did it this week and last week. We had 2 days of shooting, and man, I can tell you, I'm not sure what the end result will be, but I know what's been filmed. I think it's going to be amazing.
I'm
Really,
looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Henry, thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Got Dethroned, the Judas Paradox, out September 6th on RPM. Go check these guys out, pre-order the album, and I'll see you at a festival, at a show, on a tour, I hope very soon.
definitely, definitely.
Take care, man.
And thank you
All the best.
very much.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. All the best.
No, all right, man. Bye bye.
Bye.